Guys, so what we did, to recap, right, we cleaned it up. This is all the same, we just made it look better. Then we copied that sifting pattern down here so that it did the same operation to these normals that it did to the surfaces. That's very, very important because you want to use exactly the same vector that corresponds with exactly the same surface to make sure that it extrudes in the right direction. Otherwise, you're going to get all like snaggletooth and things are going to go all crazy. Okay, so at this stage, I do want to pause for a quick moment and just give you a word of caution that I created redundancy and risk in doing this the way that I did. Okay, when I copied sift pattern of 0, 1, 3, 2 down, it came with the panel, which in its current state is going to function just fine. It's not a problem. But if I change that pattern above, it's not going to correspond with this pattern down here, and then you're going to get all screwed up and your patterns are going to get all snaggletooth again. So the smart thing to do is to just replace this connection and make sure it only happens in one location. So you can just delete that and plug this one in instead. It's just an extra measure of caution to make sure that if you change the pattern for any particular reason, it changes it for both the surfaces and the vectors. Pro tip. All right, now let's talk about magnitude. So the vectors that we've been giving up here, right, these ones, they basically the component that you put in is only a direction. And the factor, the F that you plugged into it, the number that you gave it represents the magnitude. That doesn't really change, except we have right now a set of vectors here. That's what these are. These are vectors. Yeah, they're vectors. So we have a set of those that we need to plug in, but we don't have anything to pair it up with because I can't plug a vector into F because it's asking for a number. So there's another tool that functions in its stead, and it's under vector and vector, and it's called amplitude. Amplitude does pretty much nothing other than ask you for the vector direction and for the numerical amplitude. That's this one right here, V and A. Direction and magnitude. So you can get rid of these. You can plug your amplitude in there. And since I'm operating now on group 3, you guys can see that I modified group 3. I'm going to make sure I pull from group 3 when I plug this in. Group 3 goes in there. And then that becomes a proper vector that I can use to extrude the geometry. Which is here. My surface is kind of messed up for that. I'm going to reverse my surface so it looks a little better. I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but I'm just going to swing my surface around so that it happens on the... Oh, right. Let me do this. Surface flip. Wait, why is it doing that? Why is it going positive that? Oh. Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry, I got hung up on something. So let me talk quickly about what I was trying to reverse. And I forgot that we're no longer operating in the world coordinate plane, right? So when I flipped my surface around, you noticed how the actual extrusions themselves flipped around. So I'll show you again. Flipped it 180, and you would think that if it's going that direction the first time, it's going to continue to go that direction. Well, it doesn't. And here's why. Now that you've established a surface normal, right? That's these frames that are on each one of the surfaces. They have a positive, negative, normal direction. And the way that it defines that direction is basically how the first surface was built. So that base surface was built in a certain way that meant positive was this way, negative was that way, on the surface. So wherever that surface faces, if I swing it around, it's the same thing. So if you have your extrusions going the wrong direction, and when you select the surface, if you use flip and it doesn't change that direction, you just need to make it a negative number. So there's a long way and a short way. I'll show you both. Real quick, you can go to Math, Operators, and use negative, and just replace this with a negative input, and it'll go that way instead. You guys get that? Okay, so I'm going to do that for all of mine. I suggest you do the same. And I'm going to quickly pause the video and just kind of plug all these in. But remember, I didn't do anything crazy in this video. All I did, to recap, is I consolidated my pattern to one pattern. I removed the Z and the Y vector input, and I just replaced it with Amplify. That's it. That's all I did. And then I plugged this in and gave it a negative. That's it. What questions do you have? No questions? All right. So I'm going to pause this real quick. You had a question?
Well, mine isn't doing it.
Okay. I'll come troubleshoot with you and stuff. I'm going to pause this and just basically replicate this for each one of those. And then you'll see the final definition in all its glory. So let me just close a thought here on this, everyone, real quick, and then I'll give you a quick break. So the same thing's going to happen with this definition, where I just need to make sure that I can see the curves. I can turn off all this extra information because it's just going to distract me. And what I wind up with is basically just my final definition, and that's going to be that. Okay, so I'll recap, I guess, everything that just went on. So let me slide that out and go over the whole definition. So you're not really going to be able to see much in terms of names of things when I describe this, but you'll at least understand the idea by the shape of what the definition represents. So most of our operation happened here, right? We kind of took a detour and went off track down here to create a different kind of subdivision on a three-dimensional surface. Then we restructured, or rather reformatted this so that it was easier to understand and read and reapply later, and we popped it down here so that we could apply the same transformation of data that we used for the surfaces for these new vectors that we created. And then all we had to do was just make sure with the negative, we used Amplify. We popped in a negative, make sure they were going the right direction, and we just replaced the vector element in the extrusions. So it did take us an hour to get through, but it's really not all that much information, right? Not that hard to recap, not that hard to remember, not that hard to redo next week. Yeah. Next week, Monday or Tuesday, right? You guys are going to start off with a little quizzy. So make sure you know this. I'm giving you a little hint. It's not really a quiz. It's not graded. It's just another challenge like we did this past Tuesday. Okay. It's in order to make sure that you're practicing these things on your own. You're understanding the concepts, so on and so forth. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break. Let's take 10 minutes-ish. So we'll get started again at 8:30.